There's a trick that pros use to make their landscapes pop in Photoshop, and which beginners ignore. And missing this step is the reason so many photos look overcooked or underwhelming. Now, over the past decade, I've helped thousands of photographers use this trick in my online courses and programs to raise their landscape editing to the next level. And in this video, I'm going to reveal this game-changing approach to editing, and I'll show you how to use it to make your landscapes truly stand out. To start, let me show you one of the most effective ways to make important elements in your photos pop. So let me just put this on the screen for a second and ask you, where's Wally? So, first question is, where are you supposed to start looking? And how easy is it to know where to look? Let's try this again, only this time I'm going to not so subtly alter something about the image. Now this time, how fast did you know where to look? Pretty fast, right? Well, the same idea works with your photos to help you guide a viewer through the scene to add an extra level of depth. But you can't do this blatantly in your photos, or it will just look like you're shining a torch on it, like in this Where's Wally example. Instead, you need to do it in a much more hidden way. My free editing workflow guide gives you a bunch of ways to do this effectively in Photoshop, and you can download that in the link in the description and pinned comment. But let me show you one of these methods now. Now, the key to guiding your viewer through an image with light and shadow in editing, like we did with Wally, is knowing what things to lighten and by how much, as well as what to darken or leave the same. For example, it's easy to get caught in the trap of bringing out all of the detail in the shadows and brightening them all too much. And if you do that, you're going to make everything stand out. But when everything stands out, nothing stands out and your image becomes flat. So pick the key areas that you want the viewer to look at and subtly lighten them. Give them some more contrast to make them pop. Reduce the lightness of other areas or leave already dark areas dark if they're not the key focus of the scene. One way that you can do this is with a series of curves adjustment layers that increase or decrease brightness and contrast. And then you can brush into each one's layer mask to reveal them just in the areas that you want that adjustment to affect. So using brightness and contrast is one way to guide your viewer's eye through an image. But if you're not using it together with this next method, then your photos can still end up lacking the wow factor. So let me show you how to fix that. Now, it's reasonable to assume that if you want the image to stand out by making it more vibrant and colorful, then you can boost the saturation, right? Sounds simple. But the thing is, if you don't want your editing to look overcooked, then just like with light and contrast, you need to enhance saturation in just the right places that direct the viewer through your image. So the question now is, which parts should you enhance and by how much? So first, let me show you how to do it. Then I'll show you how to know where and by how much to do it. There are two easy ways to selectively enhance saturation in different areas of your photo. And one is to use layer masks to reveal a hue saturation adjustment layer in the parts of your photo that need it. And the other is to saturate or desaturate individual colors by different amounts. Again, with the hue saturation adjustment layer, selecting a color from this drop-down box, you can increase or decrease that color separately from the others. So that's how to selectively increase or decrease saturation to make different parts of your image stand out more. Now the question becomes, which parts of the image should you be doing this to for the most eye-catching results? Because if you're selectively enhancing light and shadow to draw attention to the important areas, and you're enhancing saturation more in some areas than in others, and your landscapes are still turning out flat, then it's because you're not using light and saturation together in the way that I'm about to show you now. So to show you how that works, let's take a quick look at some famous landscape paintings. So if you look closely at the saturation and the light in this scene, you see that some areas appear darker and more saturated, and some are lighter and less saturated. So quick question, which is which? Well, the answer is that the stuff that's closer to the painter, or in our case, the camera, tends to be darker and more saturated, and stuff that's further away tends to be lighter and less saturated. And in these paintings, the artist has done this intentionally because it actually creates a realistic sense of depth in a painting by adding atmospheric perspective that you actually see in real life. And that's what makes things actually appear further or closer. So you can actually do the same thing in your landscape editing to create results that really pop, because when you inject a sense of depth into your image, then viewers are going to feel like they can step right into the scene. And the cool thing is that there's an easy time-saving way to make light, contrast, and saturation adjustments so that they automatically affect the foreground and the background in different amounts without you having to do the layer masking yourself. So using a function that's already in Photoshop in just a couple of clicks, you can make an adjustment that saturates, for example, the foreground more than the background, or makes the background lighter without affecting the foreground, and so on. and that's all without having to do any layer masking manually. So it's never been easier to enhance the sense of depth in your landscapes. The bad news is that Adobe have made this feature really hard to find, and hardly anyone knows about it. So watch this next video and I'll show you exactly where this amazing feature is and how to use it.